The morning after the warning, Charlotte barely slept. The message from the night before kept replaying in her mind. The next collapse won't be a building. She sat on the edge of the bed staring at her phone. The sun had begun rising over the city skyline, but the apartment still felt heavy with tension. Someone had been following her, someone powerful, and now they were threatening her. Charlotte stood slowly and walked toward the window. The streets below were waking up. Yellow taxis moving through traffic, people rushing to work, coffee shops opening their doors. Normal life. But nothing felt normal anymore. She checked the street carefully. No black SUV, no suspicious cars. Still, the feeling of being watched hadn't disappeared. Across the city, Daniel Mercer sat in his office surrounded by lawyers. The board meeting the previous night had changed everything. The leaked documents had spread across media networks like wildfire. Headlines accused him of approving unsafe construction materials for the Riverside project. Daniel knew the truth. Those documents were forged, but proving that would take time, and time was something he didn't have. One of the lawyers closed a folder. Daniel, federal investigators are preparing to question several executives today. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Let them. Another lawyer spoke carefully. The board is nervous. Some of them are discussing a temporary leadership replacement until the investigation is over. Daniel laughed softly. So they're already abandoning the ship. Silence filled the room. My Daniel stood and walked toward the window. 20 years. That's how long it took him to build the company. Now someone was trying to destroy it in a matter of days. But Daniel knew something the others didn't. This wasn't just about a building collapse. Someone wanted control of the entire empire. Charlotte grabbed her coat and left the apartment. If someone wanted her to stop asking questions, then she needed answers even more. She walked quickly through the busy streets, replaying the events of the past week. The collapse. Daniel's company being targeted. The mysterious warnings. The black SUV. And one strange memory kept returning. The mechanic. The man who had helped her with the car a few days ago. Something about him had felt observant, calm, like he noticed things other people missed. Charlotte didn't know why, but a thought kept forming in her mind. Maybe he had seen something. Back at the garage, the small Brooklyn garage was already busy. Engines hummed, metal tools clanged against concrete floors, and in the middle of the controlled chaos stood Mechanic. Grease covered his hands as he worked under the hood of a silver SUV. The mechanic had always preferred machines to people. Machines made sense. People didn't. But lately, the city felt different. The news about the Riverside collapse had been playing everywhere, even here in the garage. The mechanic wiped his hands and walked toward the small office desk. The security monitor was still open. The footage from that rainy night remained paused on the screen. Charlotte's car, and the black sedan watching from down the street. The mechanic leaned closer. He zoomed into the video frame. The license plate became clearer. Quinn wrote the number down slowly, and something about that car bothered him. The garage door rolled open. Charlotte stepped inside. The mechanic looked up. For a moment, he seemed surprised. You again? Charlotte smiled slightly. I hope I'm not interrupting. The mechanic shook his head. Cars don't mind waiting. Charlotte glanced around the garage. The place smelled of oil and metal. Simple, honest. Very different from Daniel's world. I actually came to ask you something. The mechanic crossed his arms. About your car? Charlotte hesitated. Not exactly. The mechanic waited. Charlotte continued carefully. The night my car was here, did you notice another vehicle outside? The mechanic didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked into the small office and returned holding a notepad. I noticed this. He handed it to her. A license plate number. Charlotte looked confused. You wrote this down? The mechanic nodded. That car sat outside the garage for 40 minutes. Charlotte's stomach tightened. Watching. Looks that way. Charlotte sat down slowly. This is worse than I thought. The mechanic leaned against the workbench. Who are they? I don't know. Charlotte explained everything. The collapse. Daniel's company. The threats. The mysterious messages. The mechanic listened quietly. When she finished, he spoke calmly. Then, whoever is doing this is organized. Charlotte looked up. You believe me? The mechanic shrugged. I believe patterns. He tapped the paper with the license plate. And this looks like one. Charlotte stared at the number again. If we find the owner? The mechanic nodded. We find the first piece of the puzzle. In a quiet office high above the city, several monitors glowed in the darkness. One showed Daniel's office building. Another showed the small garage in Brooklyn. A man stood silently in front of the screens. A voice behind him spoke. She went to the mechanic. The man smiled faintly. That was faster than expected. The second voice sounded concerned. Should we stop them? The man shook his head slowly. No. Why? Because sometimes... He zoomed in on the garage camera feed. The most interesting stories happen when people think they're discovering the truth. Back in the office tower, Daniel's phone rang again. This time it was Elena. Daniel, we have a bigger problem. What now? Someone just purchased another 12% of the company shares. Daniel froze. 12? Yes. That means they're close to controlling the board. Daniel's mind raced. Whoever was attacking him wasn't just destroying his reputation. They were buying his empire piece by piece. Back at the garage, Charlotte stood beside the mechanic. I think we're both in danger now. The mechanic looked at her calmly. Probably. Charlotte almost laughed. That doesn't bother you? The mechanic shrugged. Engines explode sometimes too. Charlotte smiled despite the tension. Then maybe we should work together? The mechanic looked at the license plate again, then back at Charlotte. All right. Charlotte felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time since the collapse, she wasn't alone. As Charlotte left the garage later that evening, her phone buzzed. Another message. Unknown number. She opened it slowly. The message contained only one sentence. You should have listened. Charlotte's heart sank. Then another message arrived. This one contained a photo. Charlotte's breath stopped. It was a picture of the garage, taken just seconds ago. Like, comment, and subscribe for next episode.